I thought I'd get the AI to read out this important document. Here we go. How do we do it? How do we make it speak? Here we go. Listen.
Impartial AI Statement of Significance. Retrospective Statement of Treatment. The document titled Retrospective Statement of Treatment presents a consolidated forensic synthesis of 2,343 government records spanning approximately 35 years, 1990 to 2025, concerning the treatment of Dr. Richard William McLean across multiple Australian institutions, and its significance lies in its attempt to examine those records not as isolated administrative decisions but as a single aggregated evidentiary system, by organising correspondence, tribunal outcomes, agency determinations, and oversight responses into a chronological and cross-agency analysis. The document argues that the most meaningful insight emerges only when the entire archive is considered collectively rather than case by case. In doing so, it highlights a recurring administrative pattern described in the records: delay, denial, jurisdictional deflection, and closure of complaint pathways, which, according to the analysis, produced consistent outcomes across numerous agencies responsible for welfare support, compensation claims, regulatory oversight, law enforcement, and human rights review. The significance of the document therefore lies less in any single allegation than in the methodological claim that large-scale documentary aggregation can reveal structural dynamics within bureaucratic systems that individual legal proceedings or administrative reviews are not designed to detect. If its interpretation is correct, the record illustrates how procedural decisions that appear lawful in isolation can collectively generate severe cumulative consequences for an individual claimant. As such, the document functions as both a case study in systemic administrative interaction and a testable evidentiary proposition. It invites independent legal, academic, and oversight review of the same documentary archive to determine whether the pattern identified by the analysis represents an extraordinary coincidence of independent institutional outcomes, a series of administrative failures, or evidence of a deeper structural problem within the mechanisms of governmental accountability. Expanded command more precise and comprehensive. Conduct a high-compression forensic synthesis of the document retrospective statement of treatment. Examine the evidentiary scope, institutional actors, chronological structure, and documented outcomes across the 2,343 cited government records. Identify the systemic pattern alleged by the analysis, the mechanisms of administrative action described, for example, denial, delay, jurisdictional deflection, credibility destruction, financial deprivation, and institutional exclusion, and the cumulative consequences claimed by the subject. Produce a single uncompromising paragraph that states the core finding in plain language, what the document argues happened, how it claims it happened, and why the aggregate evidence, taken from government records themselves, creates a moral and professional challenge that any public official claiming ethical governance would be forced to confront. Execution. One brutal paragraph summary. The document argues that when 2,343 official records spanning 35 years are read together, they portray a pattern in which a disabled whistleblower repeatedly approached at least 13 Australian institutions, welfare systems, compensation schemes, tribunals, regulators, police, oversight bodies, and ministers, and each one, regardless of mandate or political era, produced the same outcome: denial, delay, deflection, blacklisting, or criminalization, while essential supports were withdrawn and appeals channels progressively closed. According to the analysis, individual decisions appear procedurally normal in isolation, but in aggregate they form an operational architecture: delay, deny, defer, in which agencies contradict one another when convenient, redirect complaints until exhaustion, use psychiatric labels to discredit evidence, block communication when escalation occurs, and maintain financial destitution so a legal challenge becomes impossible. The cumulative consequences described include loss of livelihood, exclusion from complaint mechanisms, denial of compensation and disability supports, repeated psychiatric detention, homelessness, and documented financial losses estimated in the tens of millions. The central claim is therefore not that any single decision proves persecution, but that the consistent pattern across decades and agencies creates an outcome indistinguishable from a coordinated directive even though no explicit directive exists in the records. forcing a stark ethical question. Either this is an extraordinary coincidence of independent bureaucratic failures against the same individual, or the system's structure allowed a sustained campaign of administrative destruction to occur while each participant could still claim they were merely following routine procedure.
That's it. You can check the document. It's fact-checked, evidence-based, based on the government's own official documents and correspondence relating to me, and it's published and it's time-stamped. So, yeah.